Sometimes their stressors become our stressors, not because we're going to step in and do the work that they need to do for themselves, but because we're the ones who see how they deal with their stress. Because as moms, we're confronted with a lot of expected and unexpected stress. When we understand how our bodies respond to stress, when we learn about the stress response and what it is and how it feels and how it looks, we can find ways to become more self-aware. So when it comes to the fight or flight or freeze response, each one of us has a buildup of emotions beneath the surface. We may not be in a life-threatening situation, but we can feel overly stressed due to a lot of different things. Hello and welcome to Mom's Way to Wellness. If you are a mom who feels lonely, unseen, and overwhelmed with the demands of motherhood, you are in the right place. I am your host, Aida Maravillas. I help overwhelmed moms transform their challenges into mental health and generational well-being as we talk about the struggles of motherhood, parenting, and mental health through a lens of faith. I offer resources and guidance to help you work through the challenges that are impacting your relationship with yourself and with others. Let's get into today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the stress response. We're going to talk about how our body responds to stress and some different ways that we can cope. So let's get into it. With the beginning of the school year, I want to take the time to talk about all of the different ways we may be adjusting to new routines that we're trying to put together and we're trying to figure out and how to cope with the stressors that we may find ourselves battling. And if school's been in session for a while, maybe fall has brought a lot of different types of activities and different types of expectations into your schedule. And so for me, I launched my youngest daughter into high school this fall, and so many memories came flooding back. Memories of different milestones and grades that my older two daughters went through, and flashbacks to how things were when I was a freshman. So much has changed, and some things have stayed the same. Kids today have to deal with things that we didn't have to deal with when we were their age. And what may stress us out now is different, but the way that we respond to stress is pretty much the same. The start of the school year carries a lot of changes with it, and we have to figure out what our new routines are going to look like. Our bedtime schedules, making lunches, if we have to make lunches, getting everyone out of the door on time, and all while juggling the logistical stuff that we need to figure out. We have to make room for the emotions that our kids have and how that impacts our emotions. Those unexpected challenges with transitions, those unexpected challenges with transitions and change are things that we need to prepare for or things that we end up reacting to. And bedtime might take a little longer. Falling asleep might be harder, and waking up and getting out of bed or getting our kids out of bed may be the biggest challenge to starting our day. We also need to consider that our kids are trying to figure out and adjust to their new teachers, new classmates, new expectations, and that there are some new stressors in place for them too. Sometimes their stressors become our stressors, not because we're going to step in and do the work that they need to do for themselves, but because we're the ones who see how they deal with their stress. We see all that comes with what they have to work through and how they work through their own challenges. And sometimes we have to help them learn how to work through the big emotions that follow. And we're going to be in a better place to do that if we understand how our nervous system is activated. So today I'm going to talk about the stress response, what it is, how it initiates a fight, flight, or freeze response, what each response can look like for us, and 2 ways we can reset when the nervous system gets activated by stress. Because as moms, we're confronted with a lot of expected and unexpected stress. When we understand how our bodies respond to stress, when we learn about the stress response and what it is and how it feels and how it looks, we can find ways to become more self aware and learn what works best for how to try to calm down and reset our nervous system so we can keep moving forward. A stress response is basically how our bodies respond to stress. It's a natural way that our nervous system has been designed to adjust and prepare for us to confront or escape something that we perceive as dangerous or something that is very demanding. What feels dangerous or demanding is going to vary based on what we have going on in our lives and what our experiences have been. When the stress response is activated by something that we perceive as dangerous or demanding, we experience an increase in adrenaline and cortisol into our system, and these are considered stress hormones. Which response we have depends on a lot of things. So, during times when we are in actual danger, the response can help to keep us safe. It's designed to protect us. But as we juggle our daily demands and start to feel stressed out about a lot of different things, it can all add up in our bodies, and our bodies can only hold on to so much inside before we react in some type of way. I remember getting ready for a trip to northern Wisconsin with my uncle, aunt, and a group of cousins when I was a teen. I was so excited for time away from the city, but there was a safety concern because we were going to be in black bear country. And so we needed to learn how to react if we came across a black bear on any hikes or bike rides. So, in order for us to know what to do, we had to watch a recording from some video, some episode on um, the Nature Channel or something. And so we learned that if we came across any bears, we were supposed to stand firm and make some noise to try to startle the bear away. We practiced clapping our hands and calling out, "Hey, bear!" And as kids, it became something we laughed about until the day we were hiking in the forest. And even though we were supposed to stay together as a bigger group, some of us started to walk up ahead of the group. We all heard a growl through the forest that froze some of us who had walked ahead of the group. And I admit I was one of the kids who had been walking up ahead of the group, and I stood and waited for the rest of the group to catch up to me. And then we walked as a larger group to the family member who had walked away or walked ahead of us. And so we all heard the growl. We had no idea where the sound came from. We imagined that it was a mama bear with her cubs nearby. And so we were loud and we kept walking when we were all together. And somehow it didn't feel as scary when we were all back together walking as a group. And before everyone had caught up to us, we had gone through a freeze response. I had no idea what it was called, but I've learned so much about it throughout the years. It's one of the ways that we react when our nervous system is activated. And it could look a certain way for us as moms, and it could look different for kids. But today I'm going to focus for how we react and what the fight, flight, and freeze response can look like for us as moms. So, when it comes to the fight or flight or freeze response, each one of us has a buildup of emotions beneath the surface. We may not be in a life threatening situation, but we can feel overly stressed due to a lot of different things. The stressors, excuse me, the stressors that can trigger our fight, flight, or freeze response can be anything from an unexpected delay in getting something done, trying to leave the house on time to get somewhere, having to run a lot of errands, or having to stop what we're doing constantly, even if it's to referee a fight that we hear between our kids, having to take care of things that we'd rather not do, being called multiple times a day by our little ones, not being able to get a moment to ourselves, a never ending to do list, laundry that piles up, messes that our kids make, nonstop demands, both at work and at home, and busy schedules that feel like they're nonstop. Our threshold for how much we can handle before reacting to our stress can be impacted by how tired we feel, what kind of mood we're in, and if we've done anything to take care of ourselves already, like proactively. And it's important to remember that we bring all of our experiences into our motherhood. So sometimes our stress is reacting to something that's a reminder from something that we've experienced in the past as well. So we're going to talk about the fight response. Let's unpack that and how it looks for moms. When I think of the fight response, I picture a volcano erupting. I picture the lava as representing what can look like a behavior meltdown or the sound of arguing or talking back. Externally, for moms, the fight response can look like being short tempered, yelling at our kids, arguing with our partner, putting others down, being passive aggressive in how we speak to others, or even wanting to hit or punch something. Even if it's a pillow, even if it's something soft, even if it's something that is not going to hurt us or anything else, that is a fight response. If we are in an actual physically dangerous situation, we may actually fight someone back, push away, defend ourselves, defend our loved ones, or we might just get loud. The way my family responded that day when we heard the growl while we walked along the trail. I froze, but my family, when they came alongside me, they were loud. Not ready to fight a bear, but just loud enough to try to scare it away the way we learned on the video that we had to watch before the trip. Internally, the fight response can feel like feeling irritable or easily annoyed, feeling our heart race, and other symptoms that I talked about in more detail in episode 6 when I talked about the difference between stress and anxiety. The work that we have to do can feel so heavy. And I have a theory that we actually also fight ourselves. And what I mean by this is that we can have negative self talk. So we're the only ones who hear it unless we're actually whispering it under our breath or saying it out loud. We put ourselves down. We blame ourselves for things not going however we think that they should go. And we allow the whispers of our inner critic to speak up. We forget that our value and worth isn't based on our circumstances, that we are feeling angry about or even fighting against. And somehow we make ourselves the enemy. The fight response is useful for times when we are face to face with a physical threat and need to defend ourselves, but it may not be the most helpful response for when we need to work our way through the stressors that come with raising kids. So let's go into unpacking the flight response. When I think of the flight response, I picture a runner. I picture someone who is either running away from a situation, walking away, or even avoiding something that is uncomfortable. For moms, the flight response could look like leaving the physical space where the stressor is, walking away from what feels stressful, so or avoiding what feels stressful, so walking away from the pile of laundry that needs to be folded or needs to be washed, walking away from a toddler who's throwing a tantrum, or even hiding from something scary or stressful, locking yourself in the bathroom hoping that your kids won't come looking for you and knocking on the door behind you a few minutes later. um, it could even look like procrastinating on getting the things done that need to get done. So maybe trying not to pay attention to the pile of dishes in the sink. Internally, the flight response can feel like mentally checking out, zoning out, or feeling restless and fidgety. Our self talk may be non productive, and we can tell ourselves things like, I'll never finish this anyway. So we could go into some negative talk, but it's not necessarily about our value and our worth. The freeze response brings an iceberg to mind. It's an image that is opposite to a volcano because instead of an explosion, it's all held together inside. It's heavy, and an iceberg is big. When you see what's underneath the surface, you see the rest of it, the things that are hidden. What is seen above the water is only the tip of something that is so much bigger. And so when I think of the freeze response, I think about what happened to me when I walked in the forest that day and heard the bear growl. But I also think sometimes and explain to people I work with the scene in the first Jurassic Park movie when they found out that the T Rex, the vision of the T Rex was based on movement, and they needed to be still. They needed to freeze. They were in a life threatening situation. And so for moms, what it could feel like is paralyzing. It can look like stillness and shock. It literally looks like being frozen, being still, being stuck in one place, being silent. Internally, there may be a feeling of dread, feeling heavy, feeling your heart pound, and feeling numb. These stress responses are the way that we naturally react to threatening or stressful situations. And if you're seeing them a little bit more recently, it can be because the school year has brought up a lot of changes that need to be adjusted to. So, the takeaway from today is that we are each individually and uniquely designed to react to stress. And the hopeful part of this is our ability to tap into some resources to reset our nervous system and reframe situations that are caused by stress. So, when it comes to coping with stress and working through a stress response, there isn't a one size fits all. And I think this is actually a gift because there are so many different ways to cope. It means that God has given us a variety of tools to choose from. And so the first thing that I recommend doing when we realize that we are feeling stressed, whatever that looks like for you, whatever that feels like for you, whether it's that you feel like your cheeks are getting hot or you're feeling irritable and you want to scream and you want to yell or your hands feel sweaty, whatever it is that is triggering you, that you are reaching your threshold, one of the first things that can help is to regulate your breathing. There are so many different breathing techniques. And so there's four square breathing, there's belly breathing. What matters is finding the right cadence for what you need in order to reset and calm down the heart rate. And so let's take a deep breath together right now. You definitely want to make sure that you take your breath in from the nose and hold it for a few seconds and exhale through the mouth. And so we'll do this together. Let's take a deep breath in and release. Let's do that again. We're going to take a deep breath in through our nose and release. This can be a hard one because it really requires us to slow down. It really calms down what we start to feel in our body. And sometimes when I do this with someone I'm working with, we can feel like the tension just decrease in our bodies. And so that's one of the first things that I always recommend doing is taking a deep breath to reset. And the next thing is to drink some water. There's so many benefits to hydrating our bodies and just resetting our nervous system and calming ourselves down has to do with regulating our breathing and drinking some water. Those are two strategies that can be so helpful. And so when we feel like we're anxious, When we feel like our heart is racing, when our thoughts are ready to spiral and things are feeling out of control, we can take deep breaths. We can feel more calm. We can reframe the situation that we're facing. We can remind ourselves what is expected and what is not expected if there's something that our kids need from us. There's so much that we can do in that moment. We can take that moment into prayer. We can meditate on a scripture. But the first thing that we have to do is calm our bodies. And so it's just important to know that we don't have to have all of the answers in that moment. We just need to feel calm enough to consider what our options are. And it's important to remember that the goal is not to eliminate stress, but to learn how to work through it. And as we do that and we experience the change in our bodies, we also have to consider that our kids are watching us. They're learning. They're learning by everything that we model. And so when we are able to show them and model for them how we can reset our nervous system, it's going to make a big difference in our approach to teaching them when they have to regulate their nervous system. And so I want to remind you that wellness is possible one step at a time. And I am so thankful that you were here for this message today. Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe and leave a review. This will help others find the show. If you would like to receive additional resources on motherhood and wellness, you can join my community by subscribing to my email list at aidamaravillas.com. Remember, wellness is possible one step at a time.